Hello, welcome to another commentary. This time it's not going to be a replay that I've played myself. It's going to be a replay of which I found on the Root Gaming website of Root Kane versus some barcode Terran. Um, I'm pretty sure this is an NA ladder game, and I don't. I kind of want to cast like higher level games because I feel like my own games um, have a skill floor or like they are not good enough because I'm held back by supply blocks or mechanic problems or I just want to I just want to have a better analysis of a game, and I think the only way to do that is to find like pro replays. And I didn't know exactly where to find pro replays, so I remember Root Gaming website they had a replay place that you could download replays, and I'm not quite sure if it's okay to just like download a replay off their site and cast it, but I'm I'm just gonna do it anyways, and if it's wrong and I get like screwed over or something, then I'll just delete it afterwards. But it's really just a learning experience. I have watched this replay, as you can see, the replay bar at the middle right. It has been gone all the way through, and the reason for this is because when I usually cast replays, I don't like it's my first time watching them. It's like a blind cast, even though I've played the game myself. It's because it's more of a learning experience where I learn as I cast. And that's really the reason why I do these things, anyways. It's so I could get a learning experience as much as possible, and I don't quite want to like spend so much time watching the same replay over and over again. But for this replay, it was just the first replay I just sort of saw, and I watched it, and it seemed okay. It seemed a pretty smart replay. It wasn't one of those like really one-sided dumb games. This game was more of it's a ZvT if you haven't noticed, and there is a proxy barracks going on. It's going to be a proxy Reaper as it's very low econ from the Terran, quick gas sort of thing. I actually have no idea what the gas was, but anyways, it's a proxy Reaper build, and it's going to be against a hatch first things there, Brute Kane, who does pool and then gas. This pool placement really interests me because I don't quite see it often. And for me, building placements, especially things like pool placements and such, I I generally don't like it in ZvT to be obstructing or walling off any of the back of the base or just obstructing any movement of my own units. Which means like say if you put a spawning pool here, then units can't move through. That sort of like blocking technique I would much prefer on ZvZ because to block like Lings and Banes and stuff. But on ZvT, like late game drops, if you put a pool behind here and they drop here, then you can't really quite have the surface area available as you could if you didn't place it in a better spot. So I'm just going to pause the replay here just because I wanted to talk about the pool placement more. So it's placed here, and another rule I like to generally go by is that I don't want the placement of the buildings to block the rallying of my units. So say this pool is here, and I don't know if I think it does wall off here. Obviously, it walls off here, so eggs have to go around the pool. So say I want to rally drones, and I rallied this line, this drone rally point to here, then the drones will have to go all the way around and then start mining. Obviously, it's a very minuscule thing to think about, and you could always just rally here, even though it is a little bit of a longer distance, I think, because this side has straight there, and it's whereas this has to go around the hatchery. But other than that, other than the drone rallying, all the units come straight out and go about their business and such. So this pool placement is not too bad. I wouldn't have done it myself. It's just something that's interesting, and if it's just ladder game, then who really like cares? Like there's more experimenting, there's more sort of whatever. But against this Reaper opening, actually, I think it worked pretty well because Reapers like to have lots of room, and they like to have dart around obstacles as well. But if you have a pool here, then a Reaper they have to go. If they're here, then they might be able to shoot a drone or something. But more often than not, they have to come inside here to start shooting the drones. And if they try to leave through here, then Lings can wall off here, Lings can wall off here. So it's sort of like mixed positives and negatives about the pool placement. But other than that, I'm just going to keep going on with the replay, as there is being a bunker placed down right here, but the Overlord sees it quite easily. And the thing about Reaper Harass that I struggle with, and I think a lot of people also struggle with, is that they get supply blocked on 28 a lot. And that's just because you're so busy microing against Reaper, and then you're like, okay, I got a macro as well, so I got to produce things. But then I don't quite make the Overlord in time. And I usually get supply blocked, so that's something I try to consciously try to remember. And also, for this specific game, as you see production tab, the Terran keeps building SCVs, and the workers are already even right now, and the Terran has a mule, that's why they have more income. Whereas the Zerg is constantly producing Lings right now. So that's the thing about this gas opening, is that since it's a gas opening, you can get Ling speed, and then you can harass with the speedlings afterwards. Chances are you're not going to get into the main because it's probably walled off. But if you can delay the expansion, or even delay the command center, since it was such an early Reaper opening, then this is great. But if you go gasless and go ramp up on the drones and the queens, then you can't quite make the same amount of Lings and have them effective, nearly as effective or effective at all, I would say. But we see Rucane making lots and lots of Lings to defend against this double Reapers, and so far it's not too bad of a loss. If you go gasless, you can lose a bit more than getting gas, obviously, because you're getting more minerals income, and you're using less larva for Lings in the beginning, because you're making queens defend. So you can lose a bit more drones because you are saving a bit more in larva and money. That could be drones anyways. So, but in the meantime, we see lots and lots of Lings produced by Kane, as he may or may not have thought that, this is an interesting question. He may or may not have thought that if this was a Reaper all-in, if this is just proxy Reaper going ham, and now the Overlord comes and sees the command center. But if this was a crazy Reaper all-in, then obviously keep producing Lings and wait till your Ling speed. And once you get Ling speed, surround the Reapers, and if you get them all, then you should be in a great position, if not a winning position. But this is a very, very weird thing, awkward situation for Root Kane, because they just made a bunch of Lings and their opponent was macroing, but fortunately they had a good timing. So that gas and Ling speed timing, and the Lings came out all in a good timing, that they were able to deny this command center from finishing with 2 seconds. It's kind of close, but that's the way it is. So for now, the Terran is floating back the racks, and they're also making a third CC. I think this is a brilliant choice for them to make a third CC right now, because I should keep going with the replay, because they've said, okay, I defended from this Ling aggression. Probably doesn't look like a Ling all-in, because I've just defended aggression, and they didn't keep rallying Lings. Even if they went Ling Bane, they would keep rallying Lings, and they would keep sending in. And so they can defend against an all-in, any all-in that comes after the droning, because they can have the time to prepare for it. But any immediate all-in that would come isn't going to come for the Terran, safely assuming. Obviously, you could do some like next level crap, but that's just too next level. And anyways, the Hellions should be able to do the scouting against Speedlings, because Speedlings can't quite surround Hellions that easily off creep. And here's a very standard Hellion Reaper push. So third CC gets a lot of econ, and now there's triple muling. Triple CCs isn't, like, the whole point of triple CCing is that it's not like you get more SCV production. You do get more SCV, but by the time your third command's finished and into an orbital, your worker saturation is already nearing full saturation. As you can see, like, this is already 10 out of 24 and whatever. So it's not that many SCVs that you're producing out of your third to saturate your 2 bases, because the majority of the work that's saturating your 2 bases are from your main and your natural command centers. So the third command center produces not that many SCVs to do the work of saturating the natural and the main. What it does do is saturate the third, obviously, and it also gives you the third mule. And the third mule is really, really good for Terran because they can. I'm going to explain a really, really like diverging concept is that once they start producing their production, they don't have the third mule kicking in as great, but once they have the third command done and their production done and everything's going on smooth, the upgrades are already paid for, everything's going on, the production's just going ham. The third CC mule is just Marines production fueling the production over and over again, and that's really the power of the third mule. It's not really the money to make the production and to get the upgrades going, because by the time your third CC is done and the SCVs are saturated from your two base, as I said earlier, it's a main and the natural that makes it, because you can get all that money from your main and your natural to get your production going, to get your barracks going, to get your engineering base production going. But it's after all that's done and your third meal starts to kick in, that's when the third meal brings in the money for the Marines and the Marauders and the medevacs and the mines and all the stuff that Terran makes as units, as pressure force. So I think a third CC is really standard now in ZvT play. And in previous videos, I've also said the timing of the third CC determines the timing of how much aggression that the Terran is going to put on. And same with the starport timing and the Widow Mine production and that sort of, and the upgrades and all that sort of stuff. Every little thing in the Terran timing of upgrades and such and production buildings and such are directly affecting the time of which their push comes out and how and what kind of push is it. Like, is it all in, or is it aggression, or is it harassment, or anything. So as we see here, going back, resuming the replay, we have a little Reaper Hellion, and this is sort of like Wings of Liberty and an expansion onto it. It's because they have, in Wings of Liberty, they just had a bunch of Hellions and they harassed with it, deny creep, whatever. But Hellions and Reapers, the great thing about Hellions and Reapers is that it does everything the Hellions do, but the Reapers are the things that you want to tank the damage. As their speed is 3.75 and the Hellion is 4.25, the Reaper is slower. So say you drag a group of this, and you right-click there, and all your Hellions get there first. They do their shots, and you right-click back, and they back out. But the Reapers are slower, so they go in front, delayed, so they don't get quite the shots because their damage is towards lanes and such is quite lower than the Hellions. So they're really there. They get there late, and they leave late. And leaving late is the key here, as it tanks the damage. Since you're leaving late, you're the last one in the group to leave. So say I right-click here, and then I right-click back. The Reapers are last to leave, so they'll be tanking the damage from the Queens and the Lings, or, little shots of... They're not going to get surrounded by Lings because the Hellions can be there behind them to clean them up because they're in the front, because you told them to move back first. So the Reapers will be taking damage, and they can regen, and they can come in and start the process all over again of denying creeps, of denying lanes and such. In early ZvT, I personally like to get roaches, just like 4 to 6 roaches, along with the additional 2 queens. Root Kane here doesn't quite have as many queens. He only has 3. And 1 is in the main, and the natural and the creep starting one are both pulled. I like to have roaches because they do burst damage. So each acid spew is like 16, 16, 16, as opposed to Lings, which are like 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, and Queens, which are like 8 or whatever. I don't even know. It's 8, I think. 4 per 2 attacks. Well, there's armor and stuff too. So, yeah. So burst damage for the roaches can whittle the Hellions down instead of doing like 5 damage to Hellions, because 5 damage to Hellions don't really do anything. Each time they come in to swing into attack, the Lings get roasted, but the roaches don't get roasted as much, and each volley from the roaches will diminish the amount of times that the Terran can come harass you. As I said before, they come in and the Hellions come in to shoot once, but once they shoot once, the roaches will hit them already because they're range units, as opposed to the Lings who will come to attack, but then by the time they attack, the Hellions are already much further back than, say, if you had roaches in the beginning. So obviously this is a really long-winded explanation, but I think it's worth mentioning. And so I like to have 2 extra queens along with the natural queen and the main queen. So I have 4 queens in total. And what the roaches do is really let you push out the creep. Sure, your queens can guard the creep tumors if it's low amounts of units, but say like reapers and lots of reapers and hellions, and they can kill queens. And this is sort of what happens, is that they kill this queen, and look again, they back out, and the reapers are always in the front. As you can see, they always soak the damage. And each time the Terran comes into attack, it's the Hellions going in first. And as you can see, the Reapers sort of lag behind, like this. But a big surround comes in from Root Cane, and the Terran does a little miss micro where they back into this corner, and this doodad sort of walls them in. And they sort of lose all their units. But these are still Lings, so it's really, really cost efficient for the Terran. And even though the units lost tab will sort of go even after these 2 Hellions die. That was a lot of larva from Kane, and that was a lot of Lings from Kane. As you can see, units lost tab. It doesn't matter quite much for Terran, at my perspective at this moment, because it's just, 14 units. That's just 14 units. But when you see Zerg, it's like 47. It's like, okay, you can count that in larva, because they're Lings, they're drones, There's 4 drones killed, and there's a queen kill, so then there's like a bunch of larvae, like around 40 or so larvae, whatever the math is. Around 40 or so larvae lost, and it's quite a bit. And there's still quite a lot of speedlings in this fight. So, since the 3rd command is up, and the only problem I have with the Terran was that even though there was 2 problems, that they got their units stuck. So the Terran was really, really far ahead, I would think. But they got their units stuck, and then the production was really, really late. As you can see, it's already 10:42. Usually Terran timing pushes come around like 10:30 for like the pro ones, or like 11 minutes, that sort of like stim, medevac sort of thing. But this is all late, and this is okay, because if you think about it, it's not like it's more okay than not, because they did the proxy Reaper thing in the opening. That obviously delays the game, and they obviously did the standard Reaper Hellion harass. So since they're not like Gosu innovation, tons of multitasking, they're not going to be able to build production facilities. But that's something they should improve on. As their production is just finished, say a standard game without the proxy Reaper, everything, the production is done, the reactors are done, the upgrades are going, everything's going, and they should have a push out by now. But instead we have productions only finishing, and like I said in the previous video, the starport reactor timing, usually you want to have, like, you swap out your factory reactor and make another reactor for your factory, because you want your medevacs quicker than you want additional Widow Mines or additional Hellions or Hellbats or whatever you want to do, because the starport means medevacs. Medevacs means sustainability. Sustainability means higher push potential. So the Terran still floating lots of monies because of the 3rd meal, but if you played it perfectly as a Terran, you could definitely have more and more and more production and more units by now, as opposed to whatever. So production-wise, Kane only lost a bunch of drones from that surround. Not too many, actually, just a couple. And a lot of Lings, but they already have the 3rd base established, already have 3 base economy, and they are just producing like mad. The 2-2 upgrades are really, really quick. I don't know if you noticed, but I'll just mention it again. Is that Kane, after the whole initial Ling harass and whatever, they only had Ling speed upgrade, and then the rest of the gas went straight into 1-1. Not even layer, not even overlord speed, whatever. So it's really, really quick upgrade timing. So as soon as the layer is finished, they can start upgrading their 2-2. As you can see, it's a substantial lead compared to the Terran, who is just almost about to finish their 1-1, whereas Kane's already a quarter of the way done of their 2-2. But so I'm going to talk about upgrades now, as there's a little bit of a harass of Kane trying to deny the 3rd, as it is Akalon Waste. It's a great use of Overlord creep here. It denies it delays the third a long time. And they're trying a little bit of aggression, but it doesn't do anything. So say like lesser player Zergs, or Zergs that don't really quite have experience with this sort of like turtley map. Say you use all your Banes and you try to use your Link to do as much damage as possible. It's not going to be very cost efficient, and you're going to be out of these units. Sure, they're low tier units, but say you run back with them, okay? Or say you use all of them. Say you use all of them and they do some sort of damage. Probably not any SCV damage. Probably just like this group of units. Honestly, at maximum, this group of units. I would think even less. Say you use all your units and you go, okay, I have no, and then you think to yourself, okay, I have no low tier units and I've done a bunch of damage. Isn't this great? Like I produced as few units as possible and I tried to do as much with them. But the fact is that sure, this happens and the Terran comes out with their push later. What do you need to defend against that push? Well, you're sure not as hell going to have ultras by then. If they have a quick push coming, you're going to need Lings and Banes anyways. So why not save these? Because these will have speed if you keep them alive that long. And these Lings will have 2/2 if you keep them alive that long. So why not save these units? Because you're going to use these mid-game units in your game plan anyways. So why not save them instead of trying to do as much damage cost inefficiently, as this is a really bad choke for Zerg to do harassment. So it's an excellent decision from Root Kane here. So going Spire tech is very, very standard for Zerg. The Spire placement, Zergs just instinctively put it behind their mains. I know I always do it, but it shouldn't be something that is a great thing to do. Unless you're planning to put like spores and spines around it, because again, you can put a drop here and you can use a spire to their advantage and whatever. But if you have plans to defend it well, then by all means go ahead and do it. So finally the Terran has triple meals again. They just dropped and they spent all their money, and they're going ham on production again, making 10 Marines at a time, another factory for Widow Mines or something. I don't know what it is for. Right here. Oh, that's great. And the next thing is that, okay, once these 2/2 upgrades finish for the Zerg, what is going to happen for the Zerg player? As you can probably guess, is that how do I get from 2/2 as a Terran to 3/3 as a Terran? Well, the way that Terran upgrades work, for people who might not know, for lower level players, or for people who already know, I'm just going to refresh your memories, that you get your engineering base, you get both your engineering base, you get your 1/1. And then to get 2/2, you need your armory. And once you get your armory, you can get your 2/2. So what people do is they get their 1/1, and then as their 1/1 is finishing, they line up their armory finishing with their 1/1 finishing. So then they can start their 2/2 as soon as their armory is complete and as soon as their 1/1 is complete. So no hiccups between the upgrades, and you get your upgrades as quick as possible to make your units, to bolster units as quick as possible. So for Zerg, you get your 1/1, once your layer finishes, you get your 2/2. But that's really, really nothing to think about. You don't really have to do anything because you're getting your layer anyways, whether it be for upgrades, whether it be for Spire, whether it be for everything, because layer is just the next step that all Zergs have to go through because they need their layer to do things beyond early game. So how do you get from 2/2 to 3/3? Well, you need your infestation pit and you need your hive. So once you have your hive, as you need requirements hive, then you can start your 3/3. So what you have to do is you have to line up your infestation pit finishing and then your hive finishing to get your 3/3. So infestation pit takes 80 seconds. Oh, 50 seconds. Okay. The spire takes 100. Okay. The infestation pit takes 50 seconds. The hive takes another 100 seconds. So it's 150 seconds if you can get it all in time. So once your 2/2 is about 40 seconds complete, you need to start making your infestation pit when your 2/2 is 40 seconds out of 190 complete. So that's actually really, really early, and nobody actually really does that in a standard um, game of play. Uh, they could do that, and I think I have done that before, where I just rushed quick ultras 3-3 and going ham, like maybe in team games or whatever. But it's not. It's quite a gimmicky strategy. It's not quite safe. So the thing is, sure, the Zerg is going to finish 2-2 quicker than the Terran finishing their 2-2, but the time in which you start the infestation pit and finish the hive, then you can start your 3-3. So in this current game, if the Terran were to start the 3-3 as soon as their 2-2 is finished, their upgrades will be quicker than the Zerg's upgrades of finishing 3-3. So as we can see in this game, this goes on, and the Terran starts moving out. I know I've paused the game a lot and nothing's really happened. I've been talking a lot, but I just want to keep talking about this. So Akalon Waste is a very easily turtly map. I think it's Terran favorite. I think a lot of people would agree that it's Terran favorite because of these 4 easy bases. Well, they're not easy. Well, depends on who you are and what your perspective is, but they're easier than other maps, say like Whirlwind, which is much, much harder to take your 4th on. But your 4th is relatively easier to take. So it's a lot easier for Terrans to turtle. And once you get your 3rd and your 4th, it's very easy to float a command center from here to here and make a planetary, but even easier to make it here and float it here and make a planetary, or whatever. Sorry, I had to cough there. I was talking a lot. So, it's a very macro-oriented game. The longer the game goes on, it's going to be Terran favored. Not only because of the expansions, but again, because of the upgrades, because of just the map itself. Akalon Waste is very good for a turtly sort of play for Terran. So Terran is pushing out with a mid-game army, and it's really, really late. As I said, it's 10:30 usually. So say, accounting the Proxy Reaper, adds another minute or another minute and a half. It's still really late for the Terran to be pushing this out. And the Zerg is already 3 base saturated. They already have mutas out. So it's not quite that difficult comparatively to a regular, more average standard game for the Zerg to be defending against the Terran. So I don't really like about this Terran is that they spread their units quite high. It's quite far. And if you can remember from Wings of Liberty, the whole reason of spreading units is because your tanks get more and more shots. But these are Widow Mines. They are one shot. What I'd rather like for MMM or 4M, which is Marine Medevac Mine and or Marauder, so I guess it's 3M, is that you get your units a lot closer, but your units themselves are more spread. So say like this is like a Wings of Liberty spread, which they have maybe like these. This is a tank and a bunch of units here, and tanks and a bunch of units here. But the problem with this is that I'd rather have these units a bit more spread out individually, like this here, this here, this here, this here, and have the Widow Mines closer and this entire army closer in general, because then your Widow Mines have better shots. It's not like shoot once, retreat, shoot once, retreat. It's more like keep fighting and keep splitting, and more action-packed, everything about hot ZvT that we love better than Wings of Liberty ZvT. But instead, you'll see sort of this, why this doesn't quite work the way the Terran wanted, is that, look, already, their aggression already has a timer, and that timer can pause or go, and that's based entirely on the Widow Mines cooldowns and the Medevac health and their energy, because the Medevacs are the sustainability of the Terran army. So Zerg, they don't really have sustain. They go in, they fight, they get out, and the mutas regen. Sure, that's a little bit of sustain, but the Bane's crashing, the Link's crashing, by the time the fight's over, most of it's dead. What retains is the Mutalisks. So if you have your Medevacs already being hit because you were kind of out of position to defend this little army group in which you had this, because this army wasn't helping you, then the timer's already ticking for the Terran player, and it's already getting quite bad. And if they really just, I understand the Terran wanting to just grab map control and get rid of creep, but what a Terran would usually do is that they send a drop, maybe full of Marines, maybe full of whatever, pull the Zerg army back, alleviate pressure from the unknown map of the Terran. Terran doesn't have quite much vision, so they don't know where the Zerg army is. So you could use scans to determine, but that's quite inefficient. Or you could use a drop, draw the Zerg army to one location, alleviate pressure from the map, from certain parts of the map. And you don't have to expect the patch Zerg, to bring their entire army. You can expect them to bring as much as it takes to defend a 8 Marine medevac drop. And once they do that, then your push is suddenly more confident in itself. And for the Terran, I think they can rally their units out here to their army because they're only at the halfway mark, even less than the halfway mark. And there's no reason that their units from this trip going all the way from their base all the way to where they are, it can't be quite flanked. Sure, it'd be flanked from here, but if it's flanking here for the Zerg, then their units aren't here defending against this army. So really, it's quite safe for the Terran to rally out. And every time they push out, every time an army pushes out, you should look towards securing another base. Say you secure another base. What can the Zerg do? They're already defending against your army. Sure, after the fight, if it goes well for them, then they can deny your fourth. But say you micro well, and as a Terran player, and it goes even, then their fourth, whether it be planetary or orbital, is quite defended because no one quite has the upper hand in army supply if you trade evenly. If you trade better, then even better. But to get a macro advantage, as a Terran player, you need to use your army and to create pressure on the map. Since the Zerg, look, no sack defense, no sack defense, no sack defense, no sack defense. Easy drop here, alleviate pressure. Sure, the rallying lanes can come out and clean it up, but by the time that happens, the pressure is already alleviated against the Zerg player and for the Terran player, so it's much, much better. And instead, the medevacs are damaged, the energy is being used up, stim's used up, and the Terran is just in a really, really awkward position. And as you can see, the Zerg player is already 2-2, Terran player's not even 2-2, so why even fight? Your army supply is even higher, why not wait until that 2-2 is done and then start to go? Because you already forced the Zerg to create banelings, to morph banelings from the lanes, and to have mutas. These are mid-game units. These aren't ultras, these aren't infestors, these aren't vipers, these aren't broodlords, these aren't greater spires, these aren't hives, these aren't whatever. They aren't 3-3. So that's already a victory for you. Why do you have to come in and push? Sure, you can clear up creep, but if you want to put yourself known as a map presence, you can't just do it blindly. You can't just do it without alleviating pressure, because all the pressure is just going to go ham upon your one army, your 1A Zerg army, and your hardcore splitting Terran army. Sure, you can do that, but it's going to go badly for the Terran player. So as you can see, Kane is really just playing this as best he can. I would think that he's banking up gas and he's getting as many mid-game units as he's getting, because he knows, okay, I have the upgrade advantage. I can get all these mid-game units. As soon as I destroy your force and take any advantage that I can, or take any advantage that I can get, I can use all this bank gas to do whatever. It's 4 base against 3 base. See, like, look at this counterattack. It's already in place. Very, very good play from Root Kane. So why does Kane feel at disadvantage if the Terran is slowly throwing the advantage away? Look, the Zerg is supposed to always be higher in supply than the Terran player, but it's not happening. It's actually the other way around. And the 4th command center is not even down. It's not even finished. It's, really, really late. So why is this happening? And you sort of see that Terran player feels really, really awkward. The creep is done. And this is the point where, okay, the creep's gone, everything's gone. Why not just back off? Or better yet, get this army that's dealing with counterattack. And once it deals with counterattack, because once again, medevacs, sustainability. Banes, once they crash in, they're dead, they're gone, no more pressure. So once you deal with this small counterattack, whether it be whatever, start rallying your units outwards towards where you have the map controlled, because you're already plugging up this area, and this area. So like this area and this area. Once you plug that up, how can the Zerg counterattack? How can they flank you? Sure, they can do mutas, but if you see mutas on your side of the map, you can easily just load into a medevac and drop. And then they have to bring their mutas back to kill the medevacs and to stop the drops effectively. As is, turns out at a really high advantage spot. What would have been great is if the Banelings killed the engineering base, but you can't blame Root Kane for knowing that because, or maybe they did know it. It's just a mistake, you know. There's a big Terran army against you. You can't really blame that sort of thing. So as this sort of goes on, Kane's is feeling more and more at home, supplies more and more even, and big surround. Nice little micro from Root Kane, the Lings and Banes. So once again, the Terran units microing, they did these little squadrons, like 3 little squadrons. What would be better is like a wall of Marines. A wall of Marines, you can protect your Widow Mines, say like a little wall here as opposed to 3 little groups. It's not Wings of Liberty. You don't have tanks. You're not here to shoot, move, shoot, move. You're here to receive the Zerg ball into you because you already have mines. You're receiving them. You're not sort of hitting and running. You're sort of receiving this army. And if you have a line of Marines, then you can split even easier because they're already pre-split better than the little 3 clumps. And they can deal with the Lings as a wall as opposed to getting surrounded little groups. And same with the mutas. It's just mutas. So this goes on, and 3-3's already started. Kane's still on layer tech. So once again, for the Zerg to start their 3-3 upgrades, they need to start their infestation pit 50 seconds, finish their hive 150 seconds later. If Root Kane was to start their infestation pit now, 150 seconds later, they can start their 3-3. By then, Terran already over 2/3 done. So really, really big advantage for Terran. So please, Terran, you didn't take your 4th yet. If you took your 4th right now, there would be no way for the Zerg to counterattack it without dealing with this army because there's a giant threatening Terran army outside your base right now. So why not do it first? So why not expand first is what I mean. Maybe even take a 5th base because a 5th planetary. Really hard for Zerg mid-game Ling Bane Muta to kill because planetaries are pretty good and they need ultras to kill efficiently. Or most commonly they use ultras to kill it. So King getting a little bit of supply block because of the overlords getting killed earlier. And Zerg's like, okay, your army is really awkwardly positioned. It's not plugging this hole. As I said, this opening is not being plugged, so I can easily move around for a flank or to do a counterattack, whatever suits me better. I can do a counterattack and deny your 4th if you choose to get it this late. It's already a mistake. If the 4th is already landed, turrets all around, and maybe a bunker and supply depot wall, then the Terran is much, much better at defending it. But as is, it's incredibly hard for this Terran to defend it. This little drop here, I don't know what the Terran was thinking. Why not drop here? Because your army is already blocking the top half. There's pressure put onto this part of the map. So if you drop here, they have to go through this army, or they have to somehow deal with this army poses a threat against your defense of the drop, or this army can reinforce that drop. So say that drop didn't work out, you can pick it up, land it here, and then instantly you're with the rest of the Terran army. So dropping here, it's like, I don't know where the mutas are, but they're not around my army here at the top of the map, so they must be at either my base or this side of the map. This side of the map where this Terran army is not covering. Now it's not a safe time to rally to the main army because there's such a long distance and you can't quite cover it as better because this entire flanking, this entire lower bottom left of the map is not covered by the Terran army anymore. So having this drop is easily clean upable, and that's exactly what happens. And the Terran keeps fighting here. And now the Zerg's like, okay, your 4th is still not down. My Ling's still burrowed. Creep's still being spread. this is like one of these few little Terran things that I like, that they shot the rocks down, so then if the banelings came in, then they could shoot the rocks down and it might even crush some banelings. But more importantly, what's guaranteed is that it will block off this hole, it will plug up this hole, so then the Zerg army can only come up from here. But by then, look at this. This army spread against these little clumps, This, there's so much money, why not wait for this army to rejoin your army? And this is already risky because there's no medevacs, no sustain. So why not just back off and rejoin armies instead of fighting with these little armies, or even just max out and secure your fourth while maxing out. That's honestly and obviously, I would think, a better situation. Obviously this is a really stressful, tense game, so can't quite get North American ladder players to quite think about this. Only I'm thinking about this after a replay, because even I'm not very good at doing these things. That's why I'm not even at the level of these people. But there is no reason. And as soon as you burrow your Widow Mines like this, you're pretty committed, because it's pretty hard to unburrow the Widow Mines and then back off. And for the Zerg to see it, they can send in little squadrons of Lings and bait out the Lings, and maybe even do a bit of friendly fire damage. But once again, army comes out. Why didn't you shoot these rocks down and crush these units? Even if you couldn't crush them, you would warrant that they couldn't retreat, or that you could use it as a force field and cut off half their army. So half was stuck on the other side of the rocks, half were engaging. That was the whole point of killing the rocks to 1 health. So really mind-boggling to me. I think finally the glaze damage from the leader, the Baneling's collateral damage finally killed the rocks, but whatever. And here the bank for the Terran player is going much down. In this lost tab, you can see that Terran is still ahead, but the Terran's fourth is so delayed that the resources from the Zerg base is already getting great. And the layer, and it's still a layer, and your 3-3 almost done. And Infestation Pit not even started, so really it was big throws from the Terran player and great patient decision making from Root Kane to bring this match back into his favor. It really shows experience. And even though you realize that, okay, I've made mistakes, I'm behind, recognizing you're behind and making the correct decisions, say, okay, I have a better 2-2 upgrade over your 1-1 early to mid-game, so I could use it and I could get even further ahead. And this is what Root Kane did, and brilliantly won this game, pulled it back. And big mid-game attack here, right before 3-3 finishing, as they knew that Terran upgrades much easier to rotate from 2-2 to 3-3 than Zerg. And here, finally Terran gets four bases, and the game's over. Not enough production for 4 bases, as that's why you see so much money. Maybe enough production for 3 bases, but definitely not 4. And the Terran player is essentially screwed over. And the funniest thing was the rage quit. No, that wasn't the funny. The funniest thing was the income tab. So 4 bases, bunch of mules, 68 harvesters against 74, and it's 50%, 150% mining efficiency for minerals compared to the Zerg. And you don't need that much gases as Terran and TVC. So it's a huge advantage, and you just threw it away by throwing your army away. So I was very critical in this replay for the Terran player, and I think it's all for good reason, because they were very far ahead, and they sort of screwed it up. And that's the replay. So great play from Root Kane and terrible play from the Terran player. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this analysis is great.